There's a homemade fertilizer recipe that's been passed around for 50 years, and every version of it comes with the same promise. Pour this on your lawn, and the grass will explode with 10 times the growth. 10 times. Not a little greener, not a little thicker, 10 times. And here's the strange part. The people sharing it always lower their voice when they get to the ingredients. They call it forbidden. They tell you the lawn care companies don't want you to know. They act like they're standing to a secret that somebody powerful is trying to bury. So, today we're going to do something none of those videos will do. We're going to put this recipe on trial. Every claim, one by one. The forbidden claim, the 10 to nix number, every single ingredient, and by the end, you'll know exactly what to pour on your lawn and what to pour down the drain. Let's open the case, the charge, what's being claimed. Here's the accused laid out plainly, so we're all judging the same thing. The recipe goes by a dozen names, but it's always some blend of the same household stuff. A can of beer, a cup of ammonia, a splash of dish soap, sometimes mouthwash, sometimes a bottle of soda or a shot of molasses. You mix it in a hose end sprayer, you spray it across your lawn, and according to the claim, within a few weeks, your grass is growing so fast and so thick that you can't believe it's the same yard. The three biggest claims stacked on top of this recipe are these. 1. That it's forbidden, hidden from you on purpose. 2. That it produces 10x growth, a literal measurable 10 times explosion. 3. That these specific kitchen ingredients are what make it work. 3 charges. We're going to test each one against actual soil science, and I'm going to tell you up front, I'm not selling this recipe, and I'm not selling a replacement for it. I have no book, no bottle, no link in the description that fixes your lawn for $47. I just want to know what's true. So let's find out whether this thing is guilty as charged or whether it's been framed. And I want to set the ground rules for this trial because they matter. We only convict or acquit on evidence, not on vibes. My uncle swears by it is not evidence. It's a story, and stories can't tell the difference between the tonic working and the rain that fell the same week. Real evidence is a number you can weigh and a test you can repeat. So every time we put a claim on the stand, I'm going to ask 2 questions. How much of the active stuff is actually there? And could you prove the result with a side-by-side you run yourself? If a claim can't survive those 2 questions, it doesn't matter how many people repeat it. Keep those 2 questions in your head. You'll be able to convict half the lawn advisors on the internet with them by the time we're done. Test 1. The forbidden test. The first charge is the easiest to check because it's a claim about history, and history leaves a paper trail. Is this recipe forbidden? Is it hidden? Is somebody burying it? No, and it's not close. This recipe isn't a secret. It's one of the most published lawn tips of the last half century. The beer and ammonia and soda tonic was made famous by a gardening personality named Jerry Baker, who sold millions of books full of these kitchen mixes back in the 1980s and 90s. He was on television. He was in newspapers. His whole brand was folksy household recipes for the yard. There is nothing forbidden about a tip that a man put on national TV and printed in best-selling books for decades. So why does every video call it forbidden? Because forbidden is a better thumbnail than 50-year-old recipe from a TV gardener. That's the honest answer. The word isn't describing the fertilizer, it's describing the marketing. They don't want you to know is one of the oldest hooks there is because it turns a plain recipe into a secret, and a secret feels valuable. And notice how the trick works, because you're going to see it again and again once you can spot it. First, they name an enemy, the big lawn companies, the fertilizer industry. Then they position the recipe as the thing that enemy fears. Then they hand you the recipe for free, which makes them feel like the generous hero standing against the villain. None of that is about your grass. Every piece of it is about making you feel like you're on the inside of a secret. And the moment you feel like an insider, you stop asking the one question that actually matters. Does the amount of stuff in this can add up to the result on the thumbnail? That question, does the amount add up, is the single most powerful tool you have against any lawn claim. And we're going to use it hard in about 30 seconds because a recipe can be 100% public, printed in a book your grandmother owned, and still not work. Being unsecret doesn't make it true. It just means the forbidden part was never the real sales pitch. The real sales pitch was the number. And I want to be careful here because I'm not telling you big companies are your friends. I'm telling you something simpler and more useful. Nobody is hiding this from you. You can find it in a library. The reason your lawn isn't already exploding with growth isn't that the information was locked away. It's that the recipe doesn't do what the number on the thumbnail says. Which brings us to the second charge verdict on test 1. The forbidden claim fails. Not forbidden. Just old and dressed up. But if it's not hidden, is it at least powerful? Let's weigh the 10-dot test 2, the math test, the 10x number. Date is the charge the whole video is named after. So let's take it seriously and actually do the math, because the math is where this falls apart in a way you can see with your own eyes. 10x growth. 10 times. Let's ask the obvious question nobody in these videos asks. 10 times what? Grass grows by building tissue. And to build tissue, it mainly needs one thing you can add: nitrogen. Nitrogen is the throttle on grass growth. So if a fertilizer is going to make grass grow 10 times faster, it has to deliver a serious amount of nitrogen. That's not an opinion. That's just how the plant works. Now let's weigh what's actually in the can. The nitrogen in this tonic comes from the ammonia. Household ammonia is roughly 5 to 10% ammonia by weight, and a typical recipe uses about a cup of it sprayed across an entire lawn. When you run that out across a few thousand square feet, you are delivering a tiny fraction of the nitrogen that a normal feeding delivers. We're talking a rounding error compared to what the grass would need to even double its growth, let alone multiply it by 10 dot. Let me make that concrete. Because a fraction is easy to wave away and hard numbers are not. Turf programs measure feeding in pounds of actual nitrogen per 1,000 square feet, and a single normal feeding is around 1 pound per 1,000 square feet. Now picture that cup of ammonia. Most of what's in that bottle is water. Only a small slice is the ammonia itself, and only a slice of that is the nitrogen atom the grass can use. Spread the nitrogen from 1 cup of household ammonia across an entire lawn, and you land at a small fraction of 1 single feeding. Not 10 feedings. Not 1. A fraction of 1. So even if every other ingredient were pure magic, the throttle, the nitrogen, is barely being touched. The engine of grass growth is idling while the recipe promises you a rocket. And there's a second problem the 10x crowd never mentions. Even if you could dump 10 feedings of nitrogen on your lawn at once, you would not get 10 times the growth. You'd get burn. Grass has a ceiling on how fast it can safely use nitrogen, and blowing past that ceiling scorches the blades, invites diseases, and grows soft, floppy, weak turf that falls apart in the first heat wave. So 10x growth isn't just unsupported by the recipe. It's not even a goal a smart lawn person would want. Faster is not the same as healthier. The people selling you explode with growth are selling you the exact thing a turf scientist spends their career telling you to avoid. And I want to correct the title, honestly, right here, on camera, because you clicked on a number and you deserve the truth about it. Nothing you mix in a watering can makes grass grow 10 times faster. That number isn't measured. Nobody ran a real side-by-side, counted the blades, weighed the clippings, and got a 10. It's a feeling turned into a figure. It's wow, that looks like a lot more, rounded up to the most dramatic number that still sounds believable. Here's the test that beats the claim, and you can run it yourself. Take 2 identical strips of your lawn. Spray the tonic on one, plain water on the other, treat them exactly the same otherwise, and mow both and weigh the clippings for a month. If this recipe did 10 times anything, you would not need a scale. You'd need a chainsaw for one strip and scissors for the other. That test has been effectively run by anyone who's ever tried it honestly, and the strips look the same. That's the whole reason your neighbor's lawn doesn't look like a rainforest verdict on test 2. The 10x claim fails. The nitrogen isn't there to make the number possible. It's marketing math, not lawn math, so the number's a myth. But a recipe can lie about its size and still have 1 or 2 ingredients that genuinely do something. So let's open the can and put each ingredient on the stand, one at a time. Test 3, the ingredient test, each one on the stand. This is the fun part, because now we stop arguing about the recipe as a whole and we cross-examine every single thing in it. Some of these are going to surprise you, A couple actually do something, and a couple are actively working against you. Beer. The claim is that the yeast and sugars in beer feed the soil. Here's the problem. The yeast in beer is dead. It's been filtered and pasteurized, so it's not a living culture doing anything in your soil, and the amount of sugar in a can of beer spread across a whole lawn is almost nothing. Beer's real reputation in gardening comes from slug traps, where the smell attracts slugs and they drown. That works. Feeding your lawn does not. Verdict. Doing nothing for growth soda. Same story, worse. The idea is that the sugar in cola feeds soil microbes. The sugar amount per square foot is microscopic once it's sprayed out, and the acids and coloring in soda do nothing helpful. There's a real principle hiding underneath this one. Soil microbes genuinely do eat sugars, but the dose in a splash of soda across your yard is so small it's meaningless. Verdict, the right idea, a useless amount ammonia. This is the one ingredient carrying real weight because ammonia is a nitrogen source, and nitrogen is the actual throttle. So ammonia isn't fake, but as we just saw in the math test, the amount in the recipe is tiny compared to a proper feeding, and household ammonia sprayed on grass in any real quantity can burn the blades. So it does a little of the right thing, badly and in a form that can scorch your lawn. Verdict. Real mechanism, wrong tool, easy to overdo, dish soap. This is the one people defend the hardest, and it's the one I most want you to hear me on. The claim is that soap is a surfactant that helps the mix soak in. It is a surfactant. That part's true, but dish soap is not made for soil. It's a degreaser designed to strip oils, and repeated dish soap on your lawn can damage the waxy coating on the grass blades and hurt soil life over time. If you ever genuinely need a surfactant, there are ones made for lawns. Dish soap is the wrong one, and in this recipe, it's not helping the grass grow at all. It's just helping the useless stuff spread out evenly. Verdict. Mildly harmful, zero growth benefit. Mouthwash. The claim is that mouthwash kills lawn fungus and pests. Think about the dose. Mouthwash is built to work in a small sealed mouth for 30 seconds. Sprayed across thousands of square feet of open soil and rinsed by the next watering, the amount reaching any one spot is a placebo. It smells like it's doing something, which is exactly why it's in the recipe. Verdict, placebo. Vinegar. Some versions of the tonic throw in a splash of vinegar and claim it balances the soil or wakes up the grass. Here's the truth. Vinegar is an acid, and in tiny sprayed amounts, it does effectively nothing to your soil's chemistry, which is buffered and far too big to be moved by a capful. In large amounts, vinegar is actually a contact weed burner. It scorches whatever green it lands on, grass included. So it's either useless or mildly harmful depending on dose, and neither one grows your lawn. Verdict. Nothing, or a small own goal, molasses. Save the real one for near the end. Unlike soda, molasses is a concentrated sugar, and when you use it as an actual drench, meaning enough of it, mixed properly and poured, not misted, it can genuinely feed soil microbes, and a healthier microbe population helps your soil release nutrients to the grass. This is the single ingredient in the whole legend that survives cross-examination, and it survives only when you use a real amount the right way, which almost none of these recipes do. Verdict. Genuinely useful, but only at a real dose, which the tonic version never gives it. Do you see the pattern forming across the whole stand? Every ingredient in this recipe falls into one of three buckets. Bucket 1 does literally nothing at this dose: beer, soda, mouthwash, vinegar. Bucket 2 does something, but the wrong something. Dish soap spreads the mix while quietly harming your soil. Ammonia adds a whisper of nitrogen while risking a burn. Bucket 3 has exactly one member: molasses, the only ingredient that both does something and does the right something. One out of the whole list. That's your recipe. A single working idea, drowning in a bucket of theater, and one or two things actively working against you. So look at what the trial just did to the recipe. The two ingredients people find most exciting, beer and soda, do nothing. The two that sound scientific, dish soap and mouthwash, are placebo at best and harmful at worst. The ammonia is real but tiny and risky. And the one that actually works, molasses, only works when you throw out the tonic and use it properly. Which means the recipe isn't fully innocent, and it isn't fully guilty. It's hiding one real idea underneath a pile of theater. Let's go find that real idea. because it's the reason any of this ever caught on. Test 4. The mechanism test. Here's the question that separates this video from every other one on this recipe. Why did molasses survive when beer and soda didn't? Because if we understand that, we understand the one true thing buried in 50 years of hype, and we can build something real on it. The answer lives in the top few inches of your soil, in a zone scientists call the rhizosphere, the thin layer right around the grass roots. That zone is packed with microbial life, bacteria and fungi, billions of them in a handful of soil. And here's the part that sounds made up but isn't. Your grass actually feeds those microbes on purpose. Living grass pumps a meaningful share of the sugars it makes during photosynthesis down through its roots and releases them into the soil. Sugars deliberately to feed the microbes around it. Why would a plant give away its own food? Because it's a trade. The microbes get sugar. In exchange, they break down material in the soil and release nutrients in a form the roots can drink up. It's a farmer's market economy happening under your feet, and grass is one of the customers. That's the actual mechanism, not feed the grass. Feed the soil, and the soil feeds the grass. And once that clicks, the whole legend reorganizes itself in front of you. Think about what a healthy microbe population actually does for a lawn beyond just releasing nutrients. It builds soil structure. Those fungal threads and bacterial glues bind loose dirt into crumbs, and crumbly soil holds both air and water where the roots can reach them. It outcompetes some of the organisms that cause lawn disease, so a biologically alive soil tends to be a more disease-resistant one, and it slowly builds organic matter, which is the sponge that lets your lawn survive a dry spell without going crisp. None of that shows up as a dramatic 10x in the first week. All of it shows up as a lawn that is quietly, stubbornly harder to kill, and that is worth infinitely more than a number on a thumbnail. Here's the other thing the mechanism explains. Why the free practices we're about to cover beat the expensive can every time. The microbes don't care whether their sugar arrived in a $15 bottle or from grass clippings you left on the ground for nothing. Carbon is carbon. Nitrogen is nitrogen. The soil economy runs on the material, not on the price tag or the marketing story attached to it. That's genuinely good news for you, because it means the best lawn on your street is not for sale. It's grown. That now the molasses makes sense. Molasses is sugar, the exact currency that economy runs on. When you add real sugar to the soil at a real dose, you're topping up the food supply for the microbes that release nutrients to your grass. That's why it's the one survivor. It's the one ingredient that speaks the soil's actual language. And this is also why the forbidden framing gets the world backwards. The people who mock soil biology and the people who sell you a magic can are making the same mistake. They both think the lawn is a machine you pour chemicals into. The truth is quieter and more powerful. Your lawn is a living system, and the healthiest, thickest lawns come from feeding that system, not from ambushing it with a shot of mouthwash verdict on test 4. This one passes. Feed the soil is real science. The tonic was a clumsy, exaggerated echo of a true idea. So let's take the true idea and build the version that actually works. The honest recipe with honest numbers. The real number, the honest rebuild. If 10 times is fiction, what's the real number? The honest answer is that a well-fed lawn doesn't multiply. It transforms. Thicker, greener, deeper rooted, more able to shrug off drought and crowd out weeds. You won't measure it as a 10x. You'll measure it by walking barefoot across it in July and feeling a carpet instead of a crunch. Here's how you get there, using the one real idea and nothing forbidden dust with what you're already throwing away, your clippings. When you mow and leave the clippings on the lawn, instead of bagging them, they break down and return their nitrogen straight back to the soil. Grass clippings are roughly 4% nitrogen by dry weight. Call it a quarter of the N number, by the way fertilizer is rated, and university turf programs are blunt about this. Leaving them can supply something like a quarter to a third of your lawn's entire yearly nitrogen need for free. Read that again, because it's the real headline this whole niche buries. The closest thing to a forbidden secret fertilizer that actually exists is the bag of clippings you've been hauling to the curb. And I'll get ahead of the old myth right now. No, Leaving clippings does not cause thatch. Thatch is built from tougher root and stem material, not soft clippings which break down fast. So stop bagging. It costs nothing. It won't burn, it won't smell if you mow regularly, and it feeds the exact soil economy we just spent this whole video uncovering. If you did only this one thing and nothing else on the list, your lawn would still be better next year than it is today. Then use molasses the right way, as a drench, not a mist. Forget the splash in a tonic. Mix a few tablespoons of plain molasses into a gallon or two of water until it's fully dissolved, and pour it over a patch of lawn so it actually reaches the soil. That delivers a real dose of sugar to the rhizosphere, many times more than the token amount hiding in the old recipe. Do it during the growing season, water it in, and you're feeding the microbes on purpose instead of by accident. Top dress with a thin layer of compost once a season. A quarter-inch of finished compost raked over the lawn is a slow-release meal for both the grass and the soil life. It adds nutrients, it adds living microbes, and it improves the soil's ability to hold water, which does more for real, visible growth than any spray in a can. The trick is to keep it thin, a quarter-inch, work down between the blades with the back of a rake so you're feeding the soil, not smothering the grass. Do it once a year on a lawn that's actively growing, and you're doing the single most effective thing in this entire video because you're not just adding food, you're adding the whole living factory that turns food into a thicker lawn. This one step is what the beer and soda crowd was blindly reaching for and completely missing. Make a clipping tea if you want to push it. Steep a scoop of fresh grass clippings or compost in a bucket of water for a day or two, strain it, and pour that liquid on thin or struggling spots. It's a gentle, genuinely soil-feeding drench, the honest cousin of the tonic, made from the thing your lawn already grows. Mow high and water deep, because the free stuff matters most. Set your mower tall, around 3 inches, so the grass keeps more leaf to photosynthesize, which means more sugar to pump down to the microbes. The whole engine runs on that. And water deeply but less often, so roots chase the moisture downward and build a deep, drought-proof system instead of a shallow one. These two habits, which cost nothing, will outgrow any bottle you can buy. Color the honest way. If your lawn is fed and thick but still looks a little pale, that's usually iron, not more nitrogen. A chelated iron product greens grass up fast without forcing the soft, floppy overgrowth that too much nitrogen causes. And Epsom salt, the other kitchen miracle, only helps if your soil is genuinely low in magnesium, which most soil isn't. Don't add it on faith. Test or skip it and match the plan to your grass and your calendar. This is the step that quietly decides whether everything else works, and it's the one the miracle can never mentions. Because pour this anytime and watch it explode sells better than it depends on your grass and the season. But it does depend. Cool season grasses, your fescues, your rye, your bluegrass, do their real growing and their real feeding in the fall when the air cools and the roots dig in. Feed the soil then, and you'll see it pay off the following spring. Warm season grasses, Bermuda, Zoysia, St. Augustine, want their feeding in late spring into summer when they're actively pushing. Figure out which family you have, feed the soil in the window when your grass is awake and hungry, and every single step above works harder. Do it in the wrong season, and even the best method in the world underdelivers, because you fed a plant that wasn't at the table. Timing isn't a detail here. Timing is the multiplier. One more honest word on expectations. None of this is instant, and I'd be doing exactly what the tonic sellers do if I told you otherwise. A soil that's been fed neglect for years doesn't rebuild its micropopulation in a weekend. You're planting a system, and systems take a season to answer. But when they answer, they don't unanswer the next month the way a quick spray of nitrogen does. You get a lawn that got better and stayed better, and that's the trade the 10x in 3 weeks. Crowd can never offer you because their number was never real in the first place. That's the real recipe. Notice there's no secret in it. Just clippings, compost, sugar, water, height, and timing. It's not forbidden. It's just quiet, and it works. The verdict. So let's read the verdict on all 3 charges because now the case is closed. The forbidden charge fails. It was never hidden. It was on television. The 10x charge fails. The nitrogen to make that number real was never in the can. The ingredient charge mostly fails. Beer and soda do nothing. Dish soap and mouthwash hurt or do nothing. Ammonia is real but tiny and risky. And only molasses survives. And only when you throw out the tonic and use it right. But here's the twist that makes this case worth the trip. The recipe wasn't lying about everything. Buried under the beer and the mouthwash, and they don't want you to know, was one true thing: feed the soil, and the soil feeds the grass. The legend took that one real idea, exaggerated it into a 10, wrapped it in a secret, and sold you the theater instead of the truth. Today we kept the truth and threw out the theater. So here's what I'll leave you with. The next time somebody hands you a forbidden recipe with a number that sounds too good to be real, put it on trial. Ask where the nitrogen is. Ask who's selling the secret. Ask for the side-by-side. That one habit will protect your lawn, your wallet, and your weekends from every miracle in a can that comes after this one. And if you want to see me take the next lawn miracle and put it on the stand, the ones about gypsum, about sugar on weeds, about the sprays that promise to green your yard overnight, that's exactly what we do here. Follow along, run the clipping test on your own lawn this month, and come tell me what your 2 strips actually looked like. Because the real forbidden knowledge isn't a recipe, it's learning to test the claim before you pour it. Gates closed.